Alright everyone, it's time for Occult Literature, video number 173, the Kybalion, actually one of the big works that I hadn't read until recently and I hadn't edited, and I'm kicking myself in the ass wondering why at this point. Link in the description of my edition of this work on Amazon. Second and third links are to my books blogs where you can purchase other works on spirituality, mysticism. This delves into philosophy quite a bit. And essentially what this work is as follows. It was written about a century ago, and it's credited to 3 initiates. Now, the author is speculated but not known. I am of the mind it was multiple people. Having 3 initiates indicates probably a high degree of certainty that there were 3 people involved with the manufacture of it, unless it's some symbolic reference that those of us not in the know simply aren't getting. It's a philosophical work mainly, and it delves into the various axioms of the Hermetic philosophy. It claims to be from a mystery tradition passed down orally from far antiquity, in the days of Greece and Egypt and Rome and so forth, passed from master to student on throughout time. It refers to alchemy, although it makes, and this is true, the case, hey, it's metaphor. We're talking about mental alchemy. You're talking about, chemical alchemy. And that's the basis of chemistry. It's all well and good, but, we've got something higher. And all existence is simply mental. It's thought. It talks about the vibration of matter, which at the time was semi-novel. You got to understand, atoms and the concept of other dimensions and some of this other stuff that it alludes to or talks about directly was not well received in the early 20th century. It was not really fleshed out. We didn't really have a conception of the concept of the atom was still as a sort of concrete static. It looked like a little, solar system or something at the time. Originally, it was suggested that it was sort of like a little gelatinous ball with little bits floating around it, sort of like a cell structure or something. This particular work, in some of its philosophical meanderings, is markedly ahead of its time with regards to the content. The concept that the universe could be essentially not an illusion, but a mental existence slash not really full existence, that everything is sort of intermeshed, is a very, very modern style philosophy. This is more like the sort of thing you'd hear in the 60s, or even in fairly modern times, among chaos magicians and things like that. Quite advanced. Extremely interesting read. Now, one bitch I have about this book, one thing, and there are other books that do this, especially from the New Age sort of hippie-trippy period, especially with the astrology and UFO cult sort of stuff you get later. One problem I have is that, like some other books, it capitalizes a lot of things that don't need to be capitalized, including having words in all caps like the one, all one, everything is mental, and I'm not a fan of that, but I did leave it intact because there's no real editing necessary for the Kybalion. The thing is, when I went through, there was some language modernization to do. I reformatted it and gave it its cover art, did its forward and so forth. But as far as editing the most of the interior content, it's pretty much in its finalized form. There's no reason to really change it, especially if, in the 1 in a million case that it's actually from some ancient Hermetic school and wasn't then modern sort of, not joke, but, philosophical tract of its time. You don't want to play with the mental alchemy, I suppose. A little bit of a joke there, but it is a good work. It's definitely highly recommended. It's also relatively well known. Again, I had been, asked, I think 2 years ago to edit, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'll throw it in there, and I got a copy of it. But I hadn't gotten around to it because I had so many other works, especially the herbals and some of the astrological works at the time. I sort of forgot about it. And then I'm going through because I'm trying to speed ahead at like 10 times normal speed, trying to get my editing projects done as quickly as possible right now. By the end of March, certainly, I want to have it all pretty much done, at least the first 200 editions. I was looking around at my files because I've got a folder that's got 500 or 600 source files in it, actually. And keep in mind, that's just one of the folders involved in my work that I have to keep constantly spotless because, OCD. And actually, I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll do this one. And then I decided to. It's an interesting work. Again, highly recommended. This is one of the bigger works within sort of the philosophical side of the occult. It's difficult to explain it further. It is dense. It is a dense read. You probably want to read through it 2 or 3 times to sort of get a full grasp of what it's talking about. But it has these various asides about existence in all of its forms, physical, mental, spiritual, and so forth. Highly recommended. Again, link in the description to my edition of this work on Amazon. Second and third links are to my books, blogs. If you're interested in this style of spiritual mysticism, there are other sort of documents on more religious overt concepts there as well. That's about all. Peace out.